So we are continuing our ranking episodes where we discuss the best three players in a certain position in Premier League history. We've done lots of positions across defense, the goalkeeper and whatnot, and now we are moving further off the park. Last time out, we did CDMs, and now we are going to central midfielders. Loads and loads of top central midfielders have played in the Premier League over the years. So trust me, narrowing it down to three is yet another difficult decision because some very, very elite names are going to be left out, no matter how you want to look at it. And one thing we must point out to our viewers is that not every midfielder that was, seen as a central midfielder is interpreted as a central midfielder, at least to the eyes of all three of us. So don't be surprised when you see some questionable names from Victor and Max and myself as well. So without wasting much time, Max, who is your number three player on your top three central midfielders ranking?
As usual, we start with Man United player. It's like a tradition, so here's Paul Scholes. And the only reason for me, I guess, not to count him higher, because he won 11 Premier Leagues, definitely a legend of league, and he was pretty smart. His passes was incredible, but for me, he wasn't this kind of a leader as the other two that are on my first and second place. And also, in later seasons, he wasn't really crucial for a team. He was like a second option, for me at least, I felt like. So I'd say overall he's decent, but not above number one and number two.
Victor,
I don't know how to follow up on that.
I honestly don't know how to follow up on that as well. But Victor, who is your number three pick?
Yeah, here goes. I'm putting Cesc Fabregas here. Just a little spoiler. I am leaving out a massive name out of my top three. More on that later. But I genuinely loved watching Fabregas play. I always felt like he didn't have the trophy cabinet to match his talent, but he just oozed class. This pick for me for Fabregas in number three, it's based more on my eye test than anything else. So I know a bunch of people will disagree, especially once you see who I've left out to put him in. But Fabregas to me was just one of the most elegant players to play as a pure CM in the Prem. By the way, based on this, I was considering picking Xabi Alonso for the number three spot, but I went with Fabregas mainly because his tenure in the Prem was longer.
Yeah, fair enough. That's a solid shout. Actually, I'm not going to complain about that one. And without wasting much time, my number three, maybe some people might think he should be higher up or not, depending on how you see him, is Frank Lampard. And I'm putting Frank Lampard at number three because, just like Victor said, in when you're ranking players from the 2005s to like 2010 and whatnot, your eye test is a better measure. Your eye test is a better measure rather than stats. And when you look at Lampard, the only thing that people actually talk about mostly is his goals. And his goals were just an added, ability and whatnot, his shooting range and whatnot. But when it comes to actual midfield play, he was actually up there, but not as good as the other names I'm going to pick. But you can't ignore that a midfielder scoring 200 plus goals is just simply generational. It's simply generational. So no matter what, I can't remove him from my list. So yeah, moving on to the number two pick. Max, over to you again.
Okay. Here's Steven Gerrard on me. So I feel like he could have been a number one, but when you look at his trophies, you see 0 Premier League titles, and this is definitely not number one stats. So, I mean, he was obviously pretty consistent and pretty strong in a lot of terms in passes, in his vision of the play, his attacking skills as well, and defensive in the end of the career. But as I mentioned, he won pretty poor cabinet of trophies, so I cannot put him on number one.
Yeah, Victor, your number two.
I know some people might disagree with this because of like the argument central midfield, attacking midfield, but I'm picking Kevin De Bruyne here. His style of play always rather reminded me of someone who's better suited as a central midfielder, just being pushed a little bit further up the field. Um, it was genuinely sad for me to see him leave the division this month, and I do feel like the Premier League has lost a proper icon with him leaving. I know that his defensive work was perhaps not as solid as some other top CMs, but his ability to pick out passes and be that puppeteer, in midfield, that was just class. And when it became official that he was leaving actually at the end of last season, part of me was holding out hope that Liverpool might snap him up, but of course I knew it would be a very out of character move for Liverpool transfer wise. I was just hoping to see him continue in the Prem. His ability, his vision, his leadership, everything he brought to the table. I think Manchester City will struggle to find someone like him ever again.
Yeah, fair enough. Like I said, me, I don't see him as a CM, so I'm leaving him out. So without further ado, my number two pick is Steven Gerrard. And the reason he's not higher up is because you can't call someone the best in history in something if the person never won it. I mean, it's just logical to not call him the best if he never did win it. But going by the eye test, man, going by the eye test, Steven Gerrard was so good that you could call him a central midfielder, you could call him an attacking midfielder, you could call him a supporting striker, you could even call him a defensive midfielder, and you would not be wrong in any of those positions. That is how good he was. He was perfect. I mean, the fact that we are including a player that did not even win the Premier League shows just how good he was. And the only disservice for him was that he did not win the Premier League. Otherwise, he would have been my number one pick. So without wasting much time, we are going to the top spot now. And over to you, Max.
The London is blue today. I'm going with Frank Lampard on number one. You're probably not gonna agree with that, but for me at least, I mean, he was pretty much completed central midfielder for me. He was so good in attack. He was a great leader. He was also pretty important in defense in certain games. So also he won 3 titles, while Steven Gerrard has 0. And he won every possible trophy with the team, and he holds a lot of records. So for me, he's slightly above Steven Gerrard.
Over to you, Victor. Your number one pick.
I love that you guys keep reminding me that Gerrard has never won the Prem. All right, so the big name I'm leaving out here is Frank Lampard, um, because my number one pick is Paul Scholes. I always felt like if you were to build the ideal CM from the ground up, it ends up being Scholes 100 times out of 100. He was just incredible. Whether we look at his longevity, his ability, his conduct on and off the pitch, everything. He was just a model citizen, however you slice it. And Manchester United's dominance in the late 90s and the 2000s simply does not happen without Scholes, just like it does not happen without Alex Ferguson. Um, Even though he was only 5'6", right? He was a giant among CMs and beyond. Even as a Liverpool fan, he was always my top pick for this position, and it made me hate Manchester United that little bit extra for the fact that he was just that damn good. I just cannot look past Scholes for the number one pick.
Yeah. And on that note, I think I don't need to do much explanation again, since my number one was also Paul Scholes, which was very surprising because a Manchester United fan actually put Paul Scholes at number three. That was why I had that look like, yo, I did watch Paul Scholes, and just like Victor said, he was one of those players that you watch him and you feel like, I wish this guy was playing for my team.
Yeah.
That was how good he was. And he was widely regarded as the best English player of his generation. You know, he was just that good. He had everything in his locker, a pass, a shooting range that players were afraid of, everything was just proper. And then the fact that he won 11 Premier League titles, played for 20 years at the top level. He's my undisputed number one. Yeah, no one. I can't let my bias for United come in this one. Paul Scholes
Yeah.
is my top midfielder for me. And there you have it. Those are our picks for the top three central midfielders in Premier League history. A controversial one from Victor, you know, leaving out Frank Lampard, but maybe in some other episode there will be some justification if we see Lampard in another position, maybe or maybe not. We'll never know. But what do you think, to our viewers out there? Frank Lampard not in a top three central midfielders list. Do you agree with that? And Paul Scholes being number one or maybe behind in number three. Where do you think Paul Scholes ranks among the top midfielders in Premier League history? And I think the unicorn pick here was Cesc Fabregas. I mean, I would not have picked him, but I can't complain, honestly. But yeah, it was a nice episode. And next time out, we'll be moving further across the midfield. And those are expected to bring even more controversial picks once again. So don't miss out.